Hello, wildlings. I'm your Creepsmith, and you found my Fear Forge. Lucky you.
One of the worst things about being in an accident or a catastrophe is survivor's guilt after the fact. I can't imagine that would be made any better by the events of today's story, 5 Days, by ClericofMadness. Inside a cave on the side of a snowy mountain, a woman stirs to consciousness. She takes note of the various blood-stained strips of clothing wrapped around her arms and looks up at the cave ceiling. As reality reforms itself around her, she notices that the cave is slightly illuminated and that she is curiously warm. She sits up slowly, and her vision begins to come together. Sitting a few feet in front of her is a man by a small fire, not big enough to heat much of anything, but rather a dim light source. Then she looks down at the things keeping her warm, clothing and thin blankets wrapped carefully around her. "Welcome," says the man as he looks up from the fire, finally noticing that she is now awake. What? Where?" she stammers weakly. Please don't fret. You're safe. I don't know if you remember, but the plane we were on went down. It hit the side of the mountain, and you and I were the only survivors. I found you on one of my attempts to scavenge supplies and clothing from the wreckage," the man said, smiling. His clothing was torn, obviously used to make the dressings on the woman's wounds. "Oh my, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I don't know, how to thank you. Where are you sleeping?" she said as she smiled nervously, glancing around the room for where his pile of blankets might be located. He wasn't wearing very much, and she knew that he had to be cold in that state. Don't concern yourself with something like that. I'm just glad to see that you're alive and well. You were out for so long, I began to wonder whether it was worth the sacrifice to bring you back here. It wasn't easy getting you from there to here. The man smiled, despite remembering the unpleasant memory of carrying a person through several feet of waist-high snow. "Well, how long was I out?" she asked, morbidly curious. "About 5 days. When I went back out the next day to try and find as much remaining food as I could from the plane, I brought back what I could. But it was so cold." "I'm sure it was. What with using your clothes to save me," she began to say more, but the man stopped her. "Oh, there'll be time for that tomorrow. You need to rest more and warm up. We'll talk in the morning." And with that, she nodded and lay back down. In almost no time at all, she was asleep. Several hours into her rest, around noon the next day, she was woken by the sound of crunching snow and shouting voices. "We got a survivor!" a voice shouted from inside the cave, and the woman sat up, thinking it was the man that had saved her. Yes, survivors!" she called out weakly. "Now, ma'am, please lie back down," the voice said as the person drew nearer, revealing to her that he was not the man to which she had spoken the other night. "We're getting rescued," she said happily as she eased back onto the hard ground. We?" the rescuer asked as she was put onto a stretcher and carried out. "Well, yes, the man who saved me's in there too. Didn't you find him?" she asked as they reached the helicopter perched in a safe area of the mountain. I'll find out," the rescuer said as he stepped away for a moment. But he quickly returned. "Well?" she asked, looking at him expectantly. "I want to thank him properly when I'm better." "Ma'am," the man said, "I have bad news. There was another person in the cave with you, yes. However, from the best estimates we can put together, he died of hypothermia at least 5 days ago. And with that, stay scary, wildlings. Always dress appropriately, and make the most of your nights.